Hi! If you're watching this video, you probably have a new Prince Tournament 6800 table tennis table. I'm here to guide you through the assembly process. We've done a lot of work up front, pre-assembling the apron, casters, legs, accessory holders, and brackets, so we hope you find the process simple and easy. A few things before we jump in. Your table comes with a limited warranty, detailed in your assembly instructions manual. If you have any questions or concerns, reach out to our customer service by phone at 1-866-677-4771 or by email at customer.service@dcsg.com. Remember that this table is intended only for indoor use. When not in use, make sure the wheel locks are properly engaged and store it in a dry indoor space. Condensation and moisture can cause damage to the tabletop. Examine your table regularly for wear and tear and discontinue use immediately if you find any defects or damaged parts. Before taking any parts out of the box, please refer to page 1 of your assembly instructions manual for a detailed safety notice. Only adults should assemble this table, and at least 2 or 3 adults are required for full assembly. Children should never adjust or move the table and should not be left unattended with the table. Never climb, sit, jump, lean, or stand on the table. It is not intended to bear weight, and serious injury may result. Always wear proper safety equipment during assembly, especially when using power tools, and be sure to find a dry, flat, clear area to set up. Also, keep in mind that sometimes you will need to only hand tighten hardware, having them loose enough to adjust in later steps, so do not tighten hardware until instructed. If using a power drill during any of these steps, keep the torque low to avoid stripping screws and holes. Finally, before beginning, refer to page 2 in your assembly instructions manual for a complete breakdown of all the parts you'll have and the tools you'll need. It may be helpful to view this video once the whole way through before starting assembly. Now it's time to jump in. We'll walk you through assembly one step at a time. In this step, you'll be attaching the 4 triangle support plates, part H18, to the 2 caster beams, part P2. To do this, you'll need 8 H2 bolts, 16 H13 washers, 8 H17 stop spools, and 8 H6 lock nuts. Do remember, before you begin, to keep the assembly area clear of children and pets at all times. To start, align a triangle support plate with a caster beam, lining up the holes. Then, thread the bolt through a washer, the caster beam, a stop spool, the triangle support plate, another washer, and finally a lock nut. This can be easiest to perform if you thread both bolts at the same time on each end. Just hand tighten the nuts for now, since we'll be adjusting them in a later step. Note that the lower hole in the triangle plate and caster beam will remain open for now. Repeat this step on the other end of the caster beam, and then again 2 more times on the other caster beam. For this step, you'll need 4 H4 bolts, 4 H7 lock nuts, 8 H14 washers, the P2 caster beams you outfitted with the support plates in the last step, and the P3 middle plate. On the short sides of the middle plate, you'll find 2 holes that will align with the central holes on the caster beams. Thread a bolt through a washer, the steel frame of the caster beam, then the steel frame of the middle plate. Add another washer and a lock nut to the end of the bolt to secure. Repeat this twice for each caster beam and tighten them all the way. Lock the wheels of the caster beams and we're on to step 3. In this step, you'll attach the gray support tubes to the outside of the caster beams and the black strut tubes to the space between the triangle support plate and the caster beam. In both cases, make sure that the longer end of each beam is attached to the caster beam, bending up and out from the table as you see here. To do this, you'll need 4 H1 bolts, 4 H6 lock nuts, 4 H9 plastic spacers, 8 H10 plastic washers, and 8 H13 washers. We'll also be using the 4 support tubes and 4 strut tubes. A word of warning, be sure not to over-tighten the nuts in this step. Because the spacers are plastic, applying too much pressure may cause them to crack. You want to tighten them until they're secure, but no farther. If you've over-tightened the nuts from step 1, you'll need to loosen them so you can get the struts into the space between the caster beams and the triangle plates. To attach the tubes to the caster beams, thread a bolt first through the metal washer, then a gray support tube and a plastic spacer. Then thread it through the caster beam, a plastic washer, the black strut tube, another plastic washer, the triangle support plate, and a second metal washer. Secure it all with a lock nut. Ensure the nut is tight and then repeat this step at each of the 4 triangle support plates. This may be the simplest step yet. Angle the black strut tubes straight upward. Angle the gray support tubes down to avoid interference while you attach the tabletop. Be careful at this point. The support tubes will protrude into your assembly area. Exercise caution when completing the remaining assembly steps. The next few steps will focus on joining the base of the table to the tabletop. In steps 5 through 8, you'll be setting up just one half of the tabletop. When you have one half done, repeat those steps on the other half. When the tabletops are only partially attached, they are not secure and can be knocked over easily. Only work on one side of the tabletop at a time, and don't leave the table unattended at any point in these steps. These steps are also the ones that require at least 2 to 3 adults to complete. Do not attempt this assembly alone, as this may lead to injury. Make sure that you also lock the wheels securely. Finally, do not open the table to playing position until all the support beams and hinges are attached to the table frame. For this step, 2 adults, one on each side of the table, should lift the tabletop and align the U-shaped beam on the underside with the black strut tubes. The tabletop itself should face toward the center of the table base. In an even and controlled manner, lower the tabletop and attach it to the table base. Make sure the pre-drilled holes on the U-beam line up with the pre-drilled holes on the black support beam. This will be important during a later step. Now your tabletop is on, but it's still unstable. That's what the support tubes are for. In this step, we're going to attach the gray support tubes from step 3 to the outside of the table legs. Remember to be careful around the table for the next 3 steps. Don't open it or leave it unattended. It can still easily fall over and cause injury or property damage. In this step, you'll need 4 H3 bolts, 4 H7 lock nuts, 4 H11 plastic washers, 8 H14 washers, and of course, the 4 support tubes, which should already be attached to the base. Remember not to over-tighten the nuts in this step, which could crack the plastic washers. To attach the supports, thread the bolt first through a metal washer, then the gray support tube, and a plastic washer. Then thread the bolt through the table leg and another washer before securing it with a lock nut. Tighten the nut and then repeat for the other gray support tube. In this step, you'll be securing the strut tubes using the pre-drilled holes in the tabletop's U-tube and the black strut tubes. They should be lined up from your work in step 5. Here you'll need 4 H16 screws. Install those screws into the pre-drilled holes on the P5 black strut tubes. In this step, we're going to be attaching the tabletop's hinges to the black strut tubes. Be careful with the hinges. It's important to set these up correctly or there could be damage to the table. One end of the hinge should be attached to the tabletop already. You want the hinge bent with the elbow pointing downward and making a V shape. For this step, you'll need 4 H5 bolts, 4 H8 lock nuts, 4 H12 plastic spacers, 8 H15 washers, and the black strut tubes already attached to the base and the tabletop. Thread a bolt through a washer, the hinge, and a plastic spacer. From the inside of the table, thread the bolt through the black strut tube, then the washer, and then the lock nut. Secure the bolt tightly, and then repeat steps 5 through 8 for the other half of the tabletop. Now that you've attached both tabletops, you're well on your way to finishing your table. It's time to attach the table's accessory holder, which can store table tennis balls and paddles. This accessory holder attaches to the crossbar of the table legs, where you'll find 2 holes. If you need a hint on how to assemble this, you can refer to the other accessory holder, which is already assembled and attached to the opposite legs. To install, start by positioning one of the plastic pieces of the accessory holder, part P6, over one of the pre-drilled holes on the H-frame, screwing it into the frame with an H19 bolt. Secure the metal tray by tightly fitting it between the attached plastic piece and the other, unattached piece. Then finish assembly by screwing in the second plastic piece with a second H19 bolt. If it's assembled correctly, the metal plate should fit nice and snug. Your second table accessory is more functional than stylish. Protect the corners of your table with the P9 corner bumpers. Be especially careful during this step. Be sure to put both corner bumpers in place before pinning them to avoid damage to the bumpers. To assemble these, you only need to fit them into the corner slits, and then once they snap into place, insert a P10 bumper pin in the hole under the tabletop. You're just about done. Before you move on to the next step, make sure all of the support tubes and hinges are assembled correctly. Do a triple check that the area is clear of any obstacles, and as a reminder, do not allow children to climb around any part of the table. Once the area is clear, you're ready to test out your table tennis table's folding mechanism. If you've correctly assembled both tabletops, your table can be safely moved from storage mode to playback or gameplay position. Remember that only adults should move or open and close the table. When you're doing this, do not grasp metal legs, support pieces, linkage, or hinges. These parts can move and could pinch your fingers or hands. Grab the center of the top edge of the tabletop. With caution and control, gently pull the table upward until the legs rest on the floor. To secure the table, lock the hinges on both sides of the table by pushing up on the elbow. With one tabletop down and the other raised, the table is now in playback mode, perfect for solo practice. To put your table in gameplay mode, repeat this step with the other tabletop. If you're planning on putting the table in storage, start by unlocking the hinges. Then grab the center of the table's front edge, pull up and out, and continue until the tabletop sits comfortably on its own. Repeat this for the other side of the table. Once the table is secure, you can safely unlock the wheels and move it about. For safety, lock the wheels again once you've reached the desired storage or play area. Keep the wheels locked until you move the table again. Be sure to never leave the table partially opened or not fully secured, and do not leave the table unattended in standing position without being properly stored. This last step is nothing but net, literally. The net is all you have left to install before you can get the game started. For this step, your table will have to be in the gameplay position. You'll need the included net and the two P7 net clippers. Secure the net clippers to your table by clipping them near the center of the two tabletops. Keep in mind that when you put the table in storage mode, you'll want to attach the clippers to just one end of the tabletop surfaces, as close to the center as possible. The clipper can be moved back onto the dividing line when the table is in play position again. With the white part of the net facing up, attach the net to the net clippers by sliding one net sleeve onto a net clipper. Stretch the net across the table and slide the second sleeve onto the opposite net clipper. To tighten the net, pull the cord down and hook the chain at the bottom of the net clipper. To adjust the net height, crank the wheel underneath the net clipper. With that final touch, you've finished your table. Congrats! You're basically a pro, but practice makes perfect. So familiarize yourself with the storage, playback, and play position instructions in your manual. Keep your manual and a link to this video handy for future reference. We hope you enjoy your new table tennis table.